Hey everyone, get comfortable. Tonight we march back in time, far from Rome's marble streets and golden temples, to a lonely frontier at the edge of the empire. The year is 150 CE. The air is cold. The campfire smoke drifts low, and a Roman soldier wakes beneath foreign stars. Let's spend a quiet day with him, far from home, yet bound by duty. Before we dive in, take a breath, get comfortable, and if you enjoy stories that bring the past to life, consider subscribing. I'd love to know where you're listening from tonight. Share it in the comments. Now, let the world outside fade for a while, and let's begin our quiet journey through history. Soft wind whistles through the trees. A faint horn echoes somewhere in the gray distance. It's cold, the kind of cold that sneaks under your armor and reminds you you're very, very far from home. The sun hasn't properly shown itself yet, just a pale smear of light hiding behind clouds. The world is half asleep, wrapped in fog. And there, standing on the edge of the Roman Empire, is a young soldier named Marcus Flavianus. He's 23, born under the warm Italian sun, where olive trees grow and wine flows like water. Now he's stationed in a lonely fort on the frontier of Britannia, the land of endless rain, mud, and locals who still look at Romans like they're unwelcome dinner guests. He pulls his cloak tighter. The fabric's damp again. Of course it is. Everything's damp here, even the bread. The camp is quiet, except for the occasional creak of wooden watchtowers and the muffled clank of armor. Somewhere beyond the palisade, a wolf howls. Marcus doesn't flinch anymore. The first time he heard that sound, months ago, he nearly dropped his spear. Now it's just part of the background, like the wind or the ever-present smell of wet leather. A horn blows in the distance, long and low. That's the signal. Another day begins. Marcus groans softly. He rubs his eyes, stretches, and mutters, "Ah, Jupiter, why does morning always come so early?" He wasn't built for early mornings. None of them were. But in the Roman army, there's no such thing as sleeping in. The horn means it's time to rise, clean up, and line up, whether you had a full night's sleep or just a nap between guard shifts. He kicks his bunkmate awake. Publius, a fellow soldier from Gaul. Publius mumbles something that sounds very un-Roman and rolls over. Marcus sighs. If you don't move, centurion Gaius will feed your lazy backside to the wolves. That gets Publius up. Outside the barracks, the fort is slowly coming alive. The mist swirls around the barracks, the walls, and the training ground. You can barely see a few meters ahead. Figures move like ghosts, soldiers dragging themselves toward the well. Some try to start small fires, others already in formation because they're that kind of overachiever. The fort's walls are made of timber. They creak and groan as the cold wind brushes against them. Beyond those walls lies the unknown, thick forests, marshes, and tribes who still don't believe Rome's fancy roads and shiny helmets are anything worth surrendering to. Marcus looks around and takes it all in. He's been here almost a year, but every morning feels the same. Cold, quiet, and distant. He misses home, his mother's bread, the laughter of his younger sister, the smell of olives and sun-baked earth. Here, the air smells of iron, smoke, and wet soil. He joins the line near the main square where the soldiers gather. The centurion, Gaius Vero, is already there, a walking thundercloud of authority, his face carved with wrinkles that say, "Don't test me before sunrise." Legionaries. Gaius barks. Up straight, armor tight, shields ready. The empire doesn't rest, and neither do you. Marcus glances at Publius and whispers, "I bet the empire would rest if it spent one winter in Britannia." Publius stifles a laugh. Gaius's eyes snap toward them like a hawk spotting prey. "Something funny, Flavianus?" Marcus freezes. "No, sir. Just appreciating the empire, sir." "Good. Appreciate it while marching. 10 laps around the courtyard. Move." Marcus mutters under his breath as he jogs off. Appreciation achieved. By the time they're done running, the mist has begun to lift. The outline of the surrounding hills comes into view, rolling land dotted with scraggly trees and the faint smoke of distant villages. Sometimes Marcus wonders what those villages are like. He's never seen one up close. They're off limits, mostly because the locals aren't exactly handing out welcome baskets. Back inside the fort, life follows its rhythm. Some soldiers clean weapons, others patch up cloaks or help the blacksmith at his forge. A few lucky ones get kitchen duty, which sounds easy until you realize Roman bread is basically stone with flavor. Marcus sits near the fire pit with a small bowl of porridge, the official breakfast of the eternally unimpressed. It's gray, lumpy, and somehow manages to be both hot and bland. He stares at it, sighs, and says, "You know, in Rome they call this food for horses." "I miss horses." Publius grins. "You miss wine." "That too." After breakfast comes inspection. Gaius walks through the ranks, checking armor, swords, and shields. Marcus stands tall, hoping his gear passes. It does, mostly because he spent last night cleaning it with a rag until his fingers went numb. The centurion nods slightly, a victory in itself. Once the inspection's over, Marcus finally gets a few minutes to breathe. He walks along the wooden walls of the fort and looks out over the land. The fog is thinner now, and he can see the faint glimmer of a river winding through the valley below. It's beautiful in a wild, lonely way. He wonders if his father ever felt like this. His father had been a soldier too, long before Marcus joined the legions. He used to tell stories of glory, honor, and gold. Standing here now, Marcus can't help but think those stories left out the mud, the cold, and the homesickness. But still there's something in it. A strange pride. He's part of something vast, an empire that stretches from the desert of Africa to these northern forests. He's a single tile in Rome's endless mosaic. The sound of hammers echoes from the smithy. Somewhere, someone is shouting orders. The smell of burning wood and boiling stew drifts through the camp. The fort is fully awake now, alive with motion, with discipline, with purpose. Marcus leans against the wall and closes his eyes for a moment. The cold air bites at his skin, but he smiles. Another day begins on the edge of the known world. Tomorrow will look almost exactly the same, and the next day too. But that's life for a Roman soldier far from home. Routine, duty, and a quiet hope that one day, when the mist clears for good, he'll see the shores of Italy again. For now, though, there's only this: the smell of wet earth, the rumble of boots, and the echo of the horn calling him back to duty. The morning mist rises slowly over the frontier, and the legions awaken once more. Far from marble Rome and golden light, they stand guard at the edge of the world, men of iron hearts, wrapped in wool and longing. Marcus adjusts his helmet, grabs a spear, and steps forward. Another day in the Empire's shadow. Another dawn in the fog. Fade out to the sound of marching feet, disappearing into the mist. The horn sounds again, sharper this time, like it's cutting through the fog itself. Marcus groans. He's already awake, but that sound always hits him like a slap. The tuba, the Roman army's version of an alarm clock, except you can't hit snooze. Not unless you enjoy running laps until your lungs quit. The barracks come alive in seconds. All around him, soldiers jump from their straw mattresses like startled cats. Cloaks get tossed aside, boots thud on wooden floors, and curses in at least 5 different languages fill the cold morning air. The smell inside is, let's say, unique. A mix of oil lamps, sweat, leather, and damp with cloaks that never quite dry. It's the perfume of the Legion, unforgettable and slightly tragic. Marcus sits up, rubbing his eyes. His blanket is neatly folded, a small act of rebellion against the chaos. He likes order, even here on the edge of the world. He stretches, bones cracking like dry twigs, and glances at Publius, who's still half asleep, mumbling something about home. Publius. Marcus says, "If you don't move now, Gaius will make you polish the latrine walls with your face." That does it. Publius shoots up like a man reborn. "I'm awake. I'm awake," he mutters, fumbling for his boots. The barracks are long and narrow, packed tight with rows of bunks, shields hanging from the walls, and armor stacked neatly on racks. The flicker of oil lamps throws golden light across the room, catching on bronze buckles and iron helmets. Outside, the sound of other barracks waking up mixes into a low, metallic symphony, armor clinking, swords scraping, voices barking orders. Marcus grabs his gladius, the short Roman sword, and runs his thumb along the edge. It's sharp, but not sharp enough. A dull blade in battle is as useful as a spoon, and he's not planning to die holding a spoon. He sits on his bunk, pulls out a small whetstone, and begins sharpening the weapon. The rhythmic scrape fills the air, steady, focused, almost peaceful. Some soldiers hum to themselves. Others grumble about the weather. Someone's trying to relight a lamp that keeps going out. It's the usual morning chorus of a Roman fort, noisy, alive, and full sarcasm. Next comes the armor. Marcus lifts his lorica segmentata, the iron-plated chest armor that's both impressive and annoyingly heavy. He slides it on piece by piece, tightening the leather straps until everything fits snug. Every buckle, every clasp has to be perfect, not because he enjoys it, but because the centurion will definitely notice if it's not. His boots, caligy, are stiff from yesterday's mud, but he pulls them on anyway. The iron studs on the soles click against the floor as he moves. Then he reaches for his red cloak, still damp from the mist. He shakes it out, sighs, and drapes it over his shoulders like a man accepting his fate. Rome's glory never looked so soggy, he mutters. Publius snorts. At least we look terrifying. From a distance, in bad lighting, they line up outside the barracks, the air thick with fog, and the smell of oil and leather. A few men are still struggling with their belts, others checking shields, muttering prayers of Mars or Fortuna for a quieter day. And then footsteps, heavy, deliberate, unmistakable. Centurion Gaius Varro. If the gods ever decided to make a statue of discipline, it would look exactly like him, tall, broad-shouldered, his armor gleaming even in this dim light. His face could scare a barbarian army into early retirement. "Form up," he shouts, his voice slicing through the air. Every soldier stiffens instantly. Shields rise, helmets straighten, eyes forward. Marcus swallows hard. The inspection begins. Gaius walks down the line, his eyes sharp as a hawk's. He checks every detail, belts polished, boots clean, armor shining. He doesn't miss a thing. If a soldier strap is loose, Gaius notices. If a sword isn't oiled, he knows. It's like he has divine vision, the kind that sees right through excuses. He stops in front of Marcus. For a long, silent moment, Gaius stares at him, then at his sword, then at his boots. Marcus feels sweat forming at the back of his neck. "Flavianus," Gaius says slowly, "your armor is acceptable." Marcus exhales, relief. "But your boots," Gaius continues, "look like they lost a fight with a swamp." Marcus opens his mouth to respond, then wisely shuts it again. Gaius nods toward the muddy edges. "Clean them." Again. Rome's pride doesn't march through muck. "Yes, sir," Marcus replies, try not to sound like a dying man. Gaius moves on. Marcus lets out a small sigh of survival. Publius gives him a sympathetic grin. "Could have been worse," he whispers. "Yeah," Marcus mutters. "Could have been latrine, duty." When the inspection finally ends, Gaius gives a morning speech. It's always the same: discipline, duty, Rome, honor, repeat. But even Marcus has to admit there's something powerful about it. When Gaius speaks, you believe him. You believe in the empire. You believe that standing guard in the freezing mist somehow means something greater than yourself. Marcus watches his breath fog in the cold air and thinks quietly how different this feels from the warmth of Rome's sun. He remembers waking up back home, the smell of bread from his mother's kitchen, sunlight spilling through the window, his little sister running through the courtyard. Here, the sun is just a pale stranger behind clouds, and breakfast smells like boiled oats and wet socks. Still, he's here. He chose this life. The legion may be cold and strict, but it's also brotherhood, routine, and purpose. Every morning they wake up together. Every night they sleep behind the same walls. Rome isn't just marble temples and senators. It's also them, the men in the mud. As the sun finally peeks through the gray sky, light glints off their helmets, setting tiny sparks of gold across the formation. It's a beautiful sight, even out here at the edge of nowhere. Gaius finishes his speech with a roar. For Rome, the soldiers echo, voices thundering through the valley. For Rome. Marcus can't help but smile. Yeah, he misses home. But for now, the sound of his brother shouting beside him, the rhythm of boots hitting the ground, the sting of cold air, this is his life, his little piece of the empire. Discipline was the backbone of Rome's power. Every morning, from Britannia's fog to Egypt's sand, the legions rose as one, armor polished, shield steady, hearts loyal. Men who traded comfort for duty and warmth for the weight of a soldier's promise. Marcus adjusts his belt, gives a sort of final check, and looks toward the horizon, a thin strip of gold breaking through the clouds. Another day, he whispers to himself, and still no sunshine. Publius laughs. That's Britannia for you. Marcus chuckles softly, and with that, the line of soldiers begins to march toward the training ground. Boots thudding in unison, mist swirling around them. The day officially begun. Fade out to marching sounds and the faint crackle of oil lamps being snuffed inside the barracks. The clang of armor fades. The drills haven't started yet. It's breakfast time. The one quiet moment the Legion gets before the day begins its march toward exhaustion. Marcus sits cross-legged near the campfire, his cloak wrapped tight around his shoulders. The mist is thinning now, but the air still bites. Around him, dozens of other soldiers huddle close to the flames, warming their hands and pretending the smoke isn't making their eyes water. The smell of burning wood mixes with something less poetic. Salted pork fried in a pan and a faint whiff of old bread. It's not exactly the scent of home, but it's better than the smell of unwashed armor and horse sweat. Breakfast in the Roman army isn't about taste. It's about fuel. The menu? Always the same. Hard bread, a bit of salted meat, maybe some porridge if you're lucky, and a cup of watered wine. Simple, unchanging, and, according to Marcus, a slow way to forget what flavor is. He taps the bread against his helmet. It makes a dull thunk. Perfect, he says dryly. Nothing like eating bricks before sunrise. Publius grins from across the fire. At least it's consistent. You can always count on it to break your teeth. Marcus chuckles and tears off a piece, soaking in his cup of watered wine until it softens. That's the trick. Let the bread surrender before you try to chew it. The wine, weak as it is, makes it almost bearable. Almost. The soldiers eat in silence for a while. Just the crackle of the fire, the scrape of knives, and the quiet hum of a waking camp. Somewhere nearby, a mule brays impatiently, and someone yells for it to shut up. Life at the frontier. Chaos with a schedule. Across the fire pit, a young recruit named Lucius is reading a letter aloud. His Latin's clumsy, but no one minds. It's a distraction. Dear son, he reads, squinting at the parchment, your father and I are proud of your service. The olive harvest was poor this year, but your sister was married to the baker's son. That earns a few laughs from the men. Publius calls out, tell her to send bread. Ours could use a replacement. Lucius blushes and keeps reading, his voice shaky but full of warmth. Marcus smiles faintly. Every letter from home feels like a small miracle here. Ink and paper carrying tiny pieces of the world they left behind. Not everyone gets letters, though. Some men haven't heard from home in months, even years. The empire is vast, and mail travels slower than a wounded tortoise. So, when one letter arrives, it belongs to everyone. They all share in the story, the jokes, the longing. After Lucius finishes, the group sits quietly for a moment. The fire pops, and the wind hums against the wooden walls. Marcus stares into the flames, his mind drifting. He remembers his mother's kitchen in Latium. the way sunlight used to pour through the window, catching the dust in golden beams. The smell of fresh bread baking in the oven, soft and warm, not the rock-hard stuff he's eating now. He remembers her humming as she cooked, the clatter of clay pots, and the sound of his sister laughing somewhere outside. He can almost taste the honey she'd spread on bread when he was little. Sweet, golden, sticky, the complete opposite of this battlefield cuisine. He blinks, pulling himself back to the present. The fire crackles and the illusion fades, replaced by smoke and steel. Publius notices his silence. Thinking of home again? Marcus nods slowly. Just bread that didn't fight back. Publius laughs. You'll get that again. Someday. Yeah, Marcus says quietly. Someday. Around them, the conversations pick up again. Talk of rumors, mostly soldiers' favorite sport. One man swears he heard new orders are coming from the governor. Another insists they'll be rotated south soon, maybe even back to Gaul or Italy. Then someone says the emperor's planning another grand campaign in the east, and suddenly everyone's a strategist. Marcus listens with half an ear, chewing his bread thoughtfully. He's learned not to believe rumors. Soldiers gossip the way fish swim, constantly and mostly in circles. Still, a tiny part of him hopes. Just the idea of marching toward warmer lands feels like sunlight in his chest. A veteran named Quintus sits beside them, his beard streaked with gray and his hands scarred from years of fighting. He's been in the Legion longer than Marcus has been alive. Quintus doesn't talk much, but when he does, everyone listens. Don't bother chasing rumors, he mutters. Orders will come when they come. Until then, keep your sword sharp and your stomach full. It's the only control you got out here. Marcus nods. The old man's right, as usual. Quintus takes a sip of his watered wine and adds, and if you ever get homesick, just remember, even in Rome, the bread's terrible now. Taxes went up and the bakers cut corners. The men laugh again. Humor is their best defense, a small shield against the endless gray. The fire burns lower. Breakfast ends the way it always does, with men brushing crumbs from their cloaks, tightening belts, and washing down the last bits of salt and dryness with a final sip of wine. It's not much, but it's enough. Enough to march, to fight, to keep going. Marcus stands, dusts off his hands, and looks around the camp. The sun's higher now, spilling weak light across the training ground. The mist has nearly vanished, leaving behind wet grass and glistening armor. The world feels a little less heavy with food in his belly, even if that food could double as a weapon. He looks toward the horizon, where distant hills fade into clouds. Somewhere beyond them lies home. He smiles faintly and whispers, "If I ever see Rome again, I'm eating nothing but olives and fresh bread for a month." Publius grins. "Make that 2 months. I'll join you." For the Roman soldier, survival wasn't about grand battles or glory. It was about mornings like this. A fire, a cup of wine, and bread hard enough to outlast an empire. In those small moments, they remembered what they were fighting for, not just Rome's honor, but the taste of home and the hope of return. Marcus adjusts his belt, tosses the last piece of bread into the fire, and stretches. The day's training horn sounds in the distance, deep and commanding. He sighs, "And here we go again." Publius smirks. "Don't worry, maybe they'll let us eat rocks for lunch." Marcus laughs softly. "At least those will be softer." The men stand, pick up their shields, and head toward the parade ground. Full stomachs, tired smiles, and a shared sense of purpose that no distance could wash away. Fade out to the sound of crackling fire and faint laughter mixing with the morning wind. The second horn of the day sounds, louder, sharper, and far less forgiving. Breakfast is over. Rest is over. Now comes the real part of every soldier's morning, drill time. The training yard outside the fort buzzes with motion. The mist is almost lifted, leaving behind damp earth that sticks to boots and turns every step into a soft squelch. Rows of soldiers stand in formation, shields in one hand, javelins in the other. Armor gleams under the shy northern sun, and the air hums with the faint rhythm of discipline. Marcus stands in the second row, yawning into his shoulder. He's still digesting his breakfast brick, which he's pretty sure hasn't moved an inch yet. Publius stands beside him, looking equally thrilled to be alive. Then comes the voice. Form ranks. Eyes front. Shields up. Centurion Gaius Varro, the human embodiment of thunder. His voice could probably wake the dead, and maybe convince them to form a neat marching line while they're at it. Today, Gaius bellows, we train as we fight. Rome does not rest, and neither will you. Marcus mutters under his breath. Rome could try resting. Just once. Publius smirks. Careful. The gods might tell him you said that. The soldiers lock shields, the familiar rhythm of discipline taking over. The clack of wood and metal fills the air. They move as one, a human wall of iron. Gaius paces along the line like a wolf, inspecting his pack. Testudo formation, he commands. The order spreads instantly. The front ranks raise their shields forward. The men behind lift theirs overhead, creating a show of iron and leather. The testudo, or tortoise, one of Rome's favorite tricks. Marcus crouches under his shield, the world suddenly dark and tight. The smell of sweat and oil surrounds him. Every breath feels shared. Every movement must match the man beside him. Gaius shouts, hold the line, and pelts a formation with small stones to test its strength. The stones bounce harmlessly off the shields. Good, he roars. A tortoise that leaks his food for arrows. Again. They reset. Shields up. Again and again. The sound of wood meeting with echoes like a drumbeat across the fort. Marcus's shoulders ache. But he doesn't lower his arm. Not when Gaius is watching. Not when Rome demands perfection. After the formations come the javelin drills. Each soldier grips his pilum, a long throwing spear with a slender iron tip, designed to bend on impact, so the enemy can't throw it back. Targets ready. Gaius calls. Wooden dummies line the far side of the yard, painted roughly like barbarian warriors, round shields, big beards, and angry faces that look suspiciously like caricatures of their enemies. Throw. 100 javelins fly at once. The sound is sharp and satisfying, a violent whistle through the air, followed by a thud, as the spears hit their marks. Marcus's javelin lands just off-center, burying itself deep into the dummy's side. Not perfect, but close. He allows himself a small nod of pride. Again. More throws. More thuds. More aching arms. The repetition is endless, not designed for fun, but for muscle memory. The Romans believe if you train hard enough, your body fights on its own, even when your mind hesitates. By late morning, the soldiers are drenched in sweat. The yard smells of dust, iron, and determination. Gaius keeps them moving. Shields up, march forward, retreat, turn, charge. The rhythm becomes hypnotic. Boots hit the ground in perfect unison. Swords flash in the light. Shields crash against each other in mock combat. The entire fort becomes a living machine, each man a single gear turning in time with the rest. Publius leans toward Marcus between drills, whispering, "If I survive this, I'm eating an entire pig tonight." Marcus laughs weakly. "If you survive this, you'll be too tired to lift a spoon." A sudden bark from Gaius cuts through their laughter. Less talking, more fighting. The enemy won't wait for your witty remarks. They straighten instantly. Marcus mutters, "I bet the enemy would wait if he had to run laps like this." The final drill is mock combat. Wooden sword this time, though they hurt almost as much as the real ones if you're not careful. Soldiers pair off, practicing strikes, parries, and shield bashes. Marcus faces Publius. They circle each other, both trying to look more dangerous than they feel. Publius grins. "Ready to lose again?" Marcus smirks. "You mean ready to make you eat dirt?" "Absolutely." They clash, wooden swords slapping against shields, boots scraping on the packed earth. It's not elegant, but it's spirited. Gaius yells corrections from a distance. "Shield higher. Step forward. Don't lean like a drunk Gallic farmer." By the time the drill ends, Marcus's arms feel like lead. Sweat runs down his temples, and his hands ache from gripping his sword too tight. The soldiers collapse in small groups, laughing, panting, joking. Even Gaius allows him a short break. Marcus sits in the dirt, catching his breath. Around him, the camp hums with tired satisfaction, the kind of quiet that only comes after you've given everything you've got. He looks at his hands, calloused, dirty, strong. These are soldiers' hands now, built by routine, shaped by repetition. He remembers the boy who left Latium, soft and uncertain, waving goodbye to his mother. That boy would barely recognize the man, sitting here now. He glances at the training dummies, torn, pierced, and battered. Then he looks at his brothers in arms, all smiling through exhaustion. This is what keeps them alive out here. Discipline, the routine, the practice. Without it, the fear would win. Marcus thinks quietly. Strength keeps the enemy away and keeps the fear inside. He doesn't say it out loud, but the thought lingers like the smoke from a fire. The horn blows again, signaling the end of morning drills. Gaius dismisses the men with a rare nod of approval. Well done. Rome would be proud. Clean your gear and prepare for inspection. The soldiers cheer weakly, half out of pride, half out of relief. Marcus stands, stretching sore muscles. Publius pats him on the back. You almost look like a hero today. Almost. Marcus grins. I'll take it. They head back toward the barracks, boots kicking up dust. The sound of laughter mixes with the faint clang of weapons being cleaned, the soundtrack of a Roman fort between wars. Discipline was Rome's greatest weapon, sharper than any sword, stronger than any wall. Day after day, the legions trained not for glory, but for survival. On the lonely edges of the empire, sweat replaced comfort and order replaced fear. For men like Marcus, the drills were more than duty. They were armor for the soul. Marcus glances up at the pale sun, barely breaking through the clouds. His shoulders ache, his hands tremble slightly, but there's a small smile on his face. Another morning done, he says to himself. Let's see if lunch tastes like victory or wood. Publius laughs. My bet's on wood. Marcus chuckles, and together they disappear into fort's wooden gates, leaving behind the echo of training, the steady heartbeat of the Roman Empire. The day drifts slowly toward afternoon. The drills are over, the yard is quiet again, and the soldiers move about with the lazy rhythm that follows exhaustion. For some, it's cleaning armor. For others, mending cloaks or catching a quick nap before the next horn. But for Marcus Flavianus, today's assignment is a special kind of torture, guard duty. He sighs as the centurion reads out the roster. Flavianus, watchtower. Of course, always the watchtower. Publius grins from across the yard. Enjoy the view, he calls out. Say hello to the fog for me. Marcus shakes his head. Yeah, I'll wave at it if it waves back. The watchtower stands at the edge of the fort, tall, creaking, and eternally cold. Its wooden beams groan with every gust of wind. Climbing the ladder is like ascending into a cloud, one rung at a time. By the time Marcus reaches the top, the fort below looks like a small toy version of itself. Rows of barracks, smoke rising from cooking fires, soldiers like ants moving through their routines. He leans on the railing, eyes scanning the horizon. Beyond the walls, the world stretches out, endless forests tangled and dark, rolling hills fading into gray distance. Somewhere out there tribes Rome calls barbarians, people who know the woods better than any soldier ever could. To the east, faint wisps of smoke curl upward. Distant villages may be friendly, maybe not. It's impossible to tell from here. The air smells of pine and damp earth. The wind tugs at his cloak, flapping it like a banner. It's beautiful in a lonely, dangerous kind of way. For the next few hours, Marcus does what every guard on the frontier does. Nothing and everything. He stands still, eyes sweeping from tree line to river bend, from sky to valley, looking for movement that almost never comes. Most days, there's nothing to see, just birds circling, trees swaying, and clouds drifting. But that's the thing about guard duty. The silence itself becomes suspicious. Every rustle of leaves sounds like footsteps. Every shadow between trees feels like someone watching back. He tightens his grip on his spear, more out of habit than fear. He's been stationed here long enough to know that danger doesn't announce itself. It creeps in quiet like mist. He mutters softly, "Somewhere out there, someone might be watching me right now and thinking the same thing." It's a strange thought, the symmetry of fear. The hours stretch. The sun crawls slowly across the sky. It's light thin and cold. From below, the occasional sound reaches him. The clang of a hammer, the bark of an order, the laughter of men off duty. Up here, it's just wind and wood and thought. Marcus shifts his stance, trying to get comfortable. Guard duty is the perfect mixture of monotony and anxiety, half boredom, half dread. One moment, you're nearly dozing off. The next, your heart jumps at the sight of a bird landing on a branch. Still, there's something oddly peaceful about it. The fort may be loud and crowded, but up here it's quiet. The kind of quiet that lets your mind wander. Dangerous territory for a homesick soldier. He watches a hawk circle high above the tree-line. It rides the wind effortlessly, free to go wherever it pleases. Marcus envies that. He thinks of Rome, not the grand marble one from stories, but the small village outside Latium where he grew up. The dusty roads, the vineyard behind his house, his mother shouting for him to wash before dinner. He remembers her voice, warm and firm, saying, "Strength keeps you standing, Marcus, but heart keeps you human." He closes his eyes for a moment and lets the wind carry that memory away, like a whisper from another life. Hours later, a shadow climbs a ladder, a soldier bringing the next shift. It's Lucius, the young recruit with the bad Latin and the good heart. "Everything quiet?" Lucius asks, trying to sound casual. Marcus nods. "Quiet enough to hear my own thoughts," which is dangerous. Lucius laughs. "I'll take dangerous over boring." "Give a few months," Marcus says, smirking. "You'll change your mind." He hands over the watch and begins to climb down, his muscles stiff from standing still so long. Halfway down, he pauses and looks out again to the open slats of the tower. The forest stretch endlessly, still, silent, yet full of secrets. For all its calm, this peace feels fragile, like a glass shield waiting for first stone. Back on the ground, Marcus walks along the perimeter. The fort's wooden walls rise around him, solid but not eternal. The Romans built them to keep danger out, but everyone knows they're also meant to keep fear in. He stops by the gate, watching two soldiers chat while sharpening spears. Their laughter carries faintly through the cool air. He smiles. Laughter, even weak, tired laughter, is proof that they're still human, not just cogs in an empire's machine. Sometimes that's all a soldier needs to survive the frontier. A few familiar voices, a daily routine, a ritual to hold on to when the world feels too big. As evening begins to fall, the fort glows with soft orange light. Fires flicker in the courtyards, and the scent of stew drifts through the air. The watch changes again. More men climb the ladders. More eyes turn toward the horizon. Marcus sits on a bench near the wall, unstrapping his helmet and rubbing his temples. The weight of the day settles on him like dust. He glances up at the darkening sky, the first stars peeking through the blue. Somewhere beyond that vast stretch of clouds lies Rome itself. The thought feels comforting and impossibly far. He murmurs, "So much land between me and home, so much silence." And yet, in that silence, there's peace. Not the grand peace of emperors and treaties, but the small peace of survival, the steady rhythm of days repeating, one after another. For the Roman soldier, peace was never a promise, only a pause. Out here on the edge of the empire, the forests watched them as much as they watched the forests. Guard duty was more than vigilance. It was meditation, a ritual against the unknown. Strength kept the enemy away, but discipline kept the fear inside. Marcus stands again, stretching sore shoulders. He looks up once more at the tower where Lucius now stands, a lone silhouette against the fading sky. The horn for evening meal echoes across the fort, low and familiar. He smiles softly. Another day, another watch survived. As he walks toward the glow of the campfires, the mist begins to rise again, gentle, quiet, and endless, wrapping the fort in its familiar shroud. The sun climbs higher, burning away the mist that lingered through the morning. By now, the fort has settled into its slow rhythm. The part of the day when everyone tries to pretend the world isn't made of mud, sweat, and orders shouted by people with louder voices and brains. The drills are over. The guard shifts are rolling, and the smell of lunch hangs heavy in the warm air. It's not exactly peace, but it's close enough. Marcus sits near the barracks wall, helmet off, wiping sweat from his forehead with the edge of his cloak. The air feels thick, almost sticky, and his hair clings to his temples. The sky above Britannia or Germania, depending on which unlucky fort you're imagining, stretches wide and white, a bowl of light that seems to hum. A few soldiers have found a bit of shade under a stack of shields. They're laughing about something, a joke involving a donkey, a centurion, and far too much water wine. Marcus catches only bits of it, but it's enough to make him smile. It's the kind of tired, easy laughter that happens only when men are too exhausted to argue and too full of routine to care. The camp hums like a living thing. A smith hammers away at a bent sword, sparks flying like fireflies. The rhythmic clang of metal is almost musical, echoing across the yard. A few horses snort and stand by the troughs, flicking their tails to chase away flies. From the cook's area drifts the smell of boiling stew, barley, salted pork, maybe a hint of onion if the gods are kind today. The smoke rises lazily into the still air. Some soldiers nap with their helmets over their faces, mouths half open. Others sit polishing armor or carving small wooden figures, little gods, lucky charms, or just something to keep their hands busy. Even here, in a world built on discipline, men still find ways to be human. Marcus leans back on his elbows, watching it all. You know, he says to no one in particular, for an empire that conquered half the world, we sure spent a lot of time waiting around. A voice replies from beside him, calm, gravelly, worn like old leather. That's the secret of the legions, boy. The real battle's against boredom, not barbarians. Marcus turns. It's Gaius Vero, one of the older veterans, a man who looks like he's been carved out of oak and salt. His beard's gone gray, and a jagged scar runs down his cheek, like a crack in a statue. He's sitting cross-legged, mending a sandal strap with careful hands. His armor lies beside him, dented and dull but neat. Marcus grins. Didn't realize boredom could kill a man. Gaius chuckles. Oh, it can. Slow as death in the Empire. But we learn to fight it. Stories, dice, bad jokes. Keeps the ghost quiet. Ghost? Marcus raises an eyebrow. Every soldier's got him. Gaius says, eyes still on his sandal. Memories, regrets. Things we left behind when we marched north. You'll see. The longer you stay, the more the ghosts whisper. So we talk louder. For a moment, the two sit in silence, listening to the fort breathe. The wind stirs dust across the yard. Somewhere, a mule brays like it's complaining about taxes. Marcus looks down at the small wooden token hanging from his neck, a carving of Mercury, god of travelers. His mother gave it to him when he left home. Keep this and it'll bring you luck, she'd said. He turns it between his fingers and says quietly, I thought joining the Legion would make me feel bigger, like part of something unshakable. Gaius nods. It does, eventually. But first, it makes you small, reminds you how big the world really is. Marcus glances toward the horizon, where the land rolls away into green hills and mist. Feels endless. It is, Gaius says, that's why Rome builds forts. Little pieces of order in a sea of chaos. You build enough of them, and maybe the world starts to listen. Marcus smiles faintly. And if it doesn't? Gaius shrugs. Then at least we had good stew and bad jokes before the next march. The midday bell rings softly. Not an alarm, just a tone that says you survived another morning. A few men rise to stretch, while others line up near the cook fire. A ladle clanks against a pot, and the smell of stew gets stronger. Marcus joins the line, bowl in hand. The cook, a burly man with arms like logs, squints at him. You again? Didn't I just feed you yesterday? Marcus grins. You did. Still hungry. Greedy Roman. The cook mutters, handing him a ladleful thick enough to stand a spoon in. Marcus takes his bowl and sits back down next to Gaius. The stew tastes exactly like every other stew he's ever had in the fort, salty, earthy, and somehow both too hot and too cold at once. But after a morning of drills and watch, it feels like luxury. He blows on a spoonful and says, You ever think about going back? To Italy? Gaius shakes his head slowly. Rome doesn't feel the same once you've seen the edges of it. Out here, you learn something they never teach you in the Forum. The Empire's just men like us, holding the line, brick by brick, shield by shield. Marcus nods. And when the line breaks, then another man stands in your place. Gaius says, simply, that's Rome's strength, not the marble, not the gold, just the stubbornness of its sons. The sun burns high now, and the fort looks almost peaceful. No shouts, no drills, just quiet work, soft talk, and occasional clatter of armor. Marcus finishes his meal and leans against the wall again, eyes half closed. The warmth of the day seeps into his bones. For a moment, it feels like he's back home, lying in the vineyard grass while his mother scolds him for napping through chores. The memory fades as the wind shifts, carrying the smell of smoke and iron. Still, the feeling lingers, a small piece of comfort amid the Empire's noise. Gaius speaks again, softer this time. You'll learn to love these hours, Marcus. The quiet ones. The battles come and go. But this, the laughter, the heat, the small talk, this is what keeps you sane. Rome isn't just in the marble halls. It's here, in the dust, between men who keep watch together. Marcus looks at him and nods. Guess Rome's closer than it feels sometimes. Gaius smiles, slow and tired. That's the spirit. Now eat before the flies claim your portion. Marcus laughs, raises his spoon. Yes, sir. The horn for afternoon duty echoes faintly across the camp. Men groan, stretch, and rise on the ground like tired statues. Helmets go back on, armor clinks back into place, and the rhythm of the fort starts again. Marcus ties his cloak, stands, and looks once more toward the open hills. The sun flashes on the distant river, bright, calm, and untouchable. He breathes deep and says quietly, All right, Rome, let's do it again. And with that, he heads off to rejoin the living machine, one soldier among thousands, one heartbeat in the Empire's endless day. The afternoon sun drifts lower, its light softer now. Not the sharp glare of noon, but the mellow gold that makes even the rough edges of the fort look gentle. Shadows stretch across the yard. The drills are done. The shouts have faded. It's the quiet hour, that small, precious window when the soldiers finally get to breathe. Some sit sharpening blades. Some mend boots. But most, the lucky ones, pull out small pieces of parchment, folded and worn, tucked safely in belts or beneath armor. Letters, little voices from another world, one made of warmth, home-cooked bread, and people who still sleep under tiled roofs instead of under the stars. The fort grows still except for the soft sound of paper rustling and the occasional sigh. The smell of ink and wax mingles faintly with the smoke from the cook fires. Marcus sits near the barracks wall again, his back against the rough wood. He pulls something from a pouch, a folded piece of parchment, so creased it looks like it's been read 100 times, because it has. He opens it carefully, as if afraid it might crumble in his hands. The handwriting is small and neat, the edges smudged with age. It's from his sister, Livia, written months ago, maybe years now. Letters take forever to reach the frontier. By the time they arrive, everything inside them is already a memory. He starts reading, quietly mouthing the words he's memorized long ago. Dearest Marcus, the olive trees are blooming early this year. The hills smell like spring again. Father says the vineyard will be full by summer, and I've been helping with the grapes, though I still hate getting my hands stained. Mother misses you terribly. She still leaves your cup on the table, even when she knows you're far away. Marcus pauses, his lips tightening into something between a smile and a sigh. He can almost smell the vineyard, that mix of sun, soil, and sweet fruit. He can almost hear his mother humming as she cooked, her voice echoing softly through their little house. For a few moments, the noise of the fort fades away. He's not a soldier. He's just a boy sitting in the fields again, barefoot and free. A shadow falls across him. It's Lucius, the young recruit from the watchtower, holding a small piece of parchment of his own. Got one from home, too? Lucius asks, his voice quiet. Marcus nods. From my sister. Old one, though. I keep reading it anyway. Lucius sits beside him. I get it. I've been reading the same letter from my mother for months now. She keeps asking if I'm eating enough. I don't have a heart to tell her what passes for food here. Marcus laughs softly. Tell her it's delicious. She'll sleep better. Lucius grins. Yeah, and I'll lie better. They sit in silence for a while, side by side, watching the sunlight fade across the courtyard. Around them, other soldiers read aloud. A wife's message, a child's drawing, a friend's joke scribbled in clumsy handwriting. It's strange. In a place built for war, these quiet voices from far away feel stronger than any sword. Marcus reads the letter again, slower this time. I saw your friend Gaius's wife in the market. The letter continues. She says their son is walking now. Imagine that. The years are flying, Marcus. Come home soon, before they all disappear. He folds it gently, pressing the edges flat with his fingers. The parchment is soft now, worn by time and touch. Before they all disappear, he repeats under his breath. The words sting more than he wants to admit, because out here, time moves differently. Seasons blur, faces fade. You start to forget the sound of your own language, spoken by people who aren't shouting orders. He stares at the letter a moment longer, then tucks it back into his belt, close to his heart. Nearby, Gaius, the old veteran, sits writing something of his own. His handwriting is slow and deliberate, each word shaped with care. Marcus watches him for a moment, then asks, Who are you writing to, old man? Gaius smiles faintly without looking up. My wife. Been gone 10 years now. Marcus hesitates. Gone where? Back to the gods, Gaius says softly. But I still write. Helps me remember her voice. He finishes a line and blows gently on the ink. Out here, remembering's half the battle. Marcus nods. The other half being not forgetting? Gaius chuckles. Exactly. The fort grows quieter still. The sun dips lower, painting everything in gold and shadow. A few men hum softly, half songs from home, lullabies from distant provinces. The words blend together, Roman and foreign, but the feeling is the same. Home. It's the one thing every soldier carries, not in his pack or his armor, but somewhere deep beneath the scars. Marcus stretches out his legs and stares at the sky. You ever think about what it'll feel like when we finally go back? He asks. Gaius shrugs. If I ever do, it'll feel strange. Rome will have changed. So will we. But that's all right. The world moves on. Our job's just to keep it from falling apart. Marcus smiles faintly. You talk like a philosopher. Ha! Gaius says, scratching his beard. Nah, just an old man who spent too much time staring at walls. They share a small laugh, quiet, genuine, the kind that fades quickly but leaves warmth behind. As the last light slips behind the hills, torches flicker to life around the fort. The smell of burning oil mixes with the night breeze. Somewhere an owl hoots, slow and distant. The soldiers start packing away their letters, tucking them into belts, boxes, or under bedrolls. But their expressions are softer now, calmer. The words from home have done their work. Marcus watches Lucius fold his parchment with exaggerated care. "You ever write back?" he asks. Lucius shakes his head. "Not yet. Don't know what to say." Marcus smiles. "Start with, 'I'm all right.' That's what they really want to hear." He looks once more at his own letter, that fragile bridge between two worlds. It's old, yes, faded, but it still beats like a second heart inside his chest. He whispers to himself, almost like a prayer, "Keep them safe. Keep them waiting. I'll come home." Then he closes his eyes, breathing in the evening air, the smoke, the grass, the faint scent of pine. For a moment, he lets himself imagine the vineyard again, his sister's laughter echoing through the hills. It's a memory, but tonight it's enough. For the Roman soldier, letters were lifelines, thin threads tying them to a world they could barely touch. Words became warmth, ink became hope, and in the silence of the frontier, the memory of home was often the strongest weapon they had. The afternoon had slipped into that lazy, comfortable rhythm, the kind that makes even soldiers start to think the frontier might not be so bad after all. The smell of stew still hung in the air. A few men were half asleep in the shade, others repairing gear or arguing about dice games. The hammer of the smith had fallen quiet. Even the horses seemed to doze by the trough. And then it happened. A horn, distant at first, muffled by wind and walls, but unmistakable, sharp, urgent, alive. One long note, rising through the air like a jolt of electricity. For half a heartbeat, no one moves. It's like the entire fort holds its breath. Then everything bursts into motion. Helmets clatter onto heads. Shields lift from the dirt. The barracks doors swing open as men spill out, half-dressed, half-awake, but instantly alert. "Form ranks," someone shouts. To the walls. The calm is gone, replaced by the metallic rhythm of training kicking in, the reflexes drilled into them every day of their lives. Marcus jumps to his feet, heart hammering. The wooden bowl he'd been holding drops into the dust. Lucius scrambles beside him, fumbling with his helmet strap. "You think it's them?" he asks, voice trembling. Marcus doesn't answer. He just grabs his gladius and runs. The fort is suddenly alive with movement, like a hive struck by a stick. Men rush toward the gate, climbing ladders, taking positions on the watchtowers. The centurion's voice cuts through the chaos, loud and steady. Shields up, eyes on the tree line. Marcus takes his place near the wall, peering out across the open field. The woods beyond sway in the wind, dark and quiet. Too quiet. He can feel the sweat on his palms, the thud of his pulse in his ears. It doesn't matter how many drills they've done. That first moment of not knowing is always the same. The same fear, the same instinct. Is this it? The horn sounds again, closer this time. Then silence. A scout bursts through the gate, panting, cloak flapping behind him. His horse is lathered with sweat. "Movement in the woods," he shouts. "North Ridge." Couldn't tell how many. That's all it takes. The fort becomes a living engine. Orders fly from mouth to mouth. Spears are distributed. Archers take their stations, and the gate guards brace for whatever's coming. Marcus grips his shield tight, eyes scanning the horizon. The light seems harsher now, the air heavier. Even the birds have gone quiet. Lucius mutters beside him, "I hate this part." The waiting, Marcus asks. The not knowing, Lucius replies. Marcus gives a small nod. Yeah, the quiet's worse than the battle. Minutes pass. They feel like hours. The forest remains still. Every soldier's gaze is locked on it, as if staring hard enough might force the truth to appear. A branch snaps somewhere in the distance. A murmur ripples down the line. Then, from between the trees, movement, shapes, shifting through the undergrowth. Someone whispers, "There." Marcus tenses, hand tightening on his sword. The shapes come closer, slow and uncertain. Then one of them steps into the light. Not painted warriors, not raiders, traders. A small caravan, a handful of men leading donkeys loaded with furs, clay jars, and bundles of herbs. One waves a cloth high in the air, a signal of peace. For a long moment, no one says a word. The tension still hangs, solid as stone. Then the centurion exhales, long and low. "Stand down," he calls. "It's nothing." False alarm. The fort releases its breath all at once, 100 sighs blending into one. Shields lower. Laughter erupts in short bursts, half relief, half embarrassment. Lucius lets out a nervous chuckle. "All that for donkeys?" Marcus smiles, shaking his head. "Hey, you never know. Could have been very aggressive donkeys." Lucius grins. "I'd still rather fight them than another tribe." As the gates creak open, a few soldiers go out to meet the traders. The newcomers look wary but grateful, clearly aware how close they came to being mistaken for something else. One of them bows low and mutters in broken Latin, "Peace, friends, just trade." The centurion nods curtly. "Next time, make noise sooner." The man laughs nervously. Didn't want to wake the empire. The soldiers laugh too, though their voices still carry that tremor, the aftertaste of fear. Marcus sits down on a low crate, rubbing his face with both hands. The adrenaline leaves as quickly as it came, leaving only the slow ache of tension fading from his muscles. He looks around at the men, laughing, shaking their heads, slapping each other on the shoulders. Relief makes them human again. Gaius limps over, wiping sweat from his brow. "You'd think after 20 years, I'd stop jumping every time that horn blows." Marcus looks up at him. "You ever get used to it?" Gaius snorts. "You get used to surviving it. That's good enough." He drops onto the crate beside Marcus with a grunt. The trick is remembering. Every false alarm is just a rehearsal for the real one. Marcus nods slowly. "You think it'll come soon?" Gaius glances toward the treeline, eyes narrowing. "Soon enough. Out here it always does." As the traders enter camp, the mood lightens. They unload their goods, dried meat, salt, a few small trinkets that catch the soldiers' eyes. The air fills again with chatter and the smell of cooking fires. But underneath it all, a thin thread of unease remains, invisible but felt. That horn reminded them all. Peace on the frontier is never permanent. It's just a pause between storms. Later, as dusk begins to fall, Marcus climbs the watchtower again. The view is calm, smoke from cooking fires, a few men laughing near the stables, the woods turning dark and gold under the sunset. He leans on the railing and watches the horizon, where the trees sway gently in the wind. It's beautiful, yes, but to him, it now looks different, not just trees and shadows, but a reminder that the unknown is always there waiting. He murmurs to himself, "Even when it's nothing, it's something." Below, Lucius calls up to him. "See anything?" Marcus shakes his head. "Just the forest breathing." "Then breathe with it." Lucius says, "Before the next horn." Marcus smiles faintly. Wise words from a boy who still sleeps with his boots on. For the Roman soldier, peace was never still. It quivered like a flame in the wind. Fragile, fleeting, always one breath away from vanishing. Even a false alarm reminded them that safety was just another illusion, and that vigilance, weary, endless vigilance, was a price of survival. The night settles over the fort. The torches flicker. Somewhere far off, a wolf howls, low, mournful, and familiar. Marcus watches the horizon a moment longer, then turns toward the glow of the fires below. Another day, another scare, another reminder that Rome's borders never sleep. By the time the false alarm fades into memory, the sun has climbed high. The morning haze burns away, leaving the world washed in gold and sweat. The fort hums again, not with panic now, but with purpose. Orders roll down from the centurion, like stones tumbling downhill. Repair the ditch. Reinforce the wall. Move those timbers now. The soldiers know the rhythm by heart. It's not glorious work, not the kind sung by poets back in Rome, but it's what holds the empire together, quite literally. Marcus shoulders a pickaxe and joins his contubernium, his squad of 8. Together they march beyond the palisade to where the ditch curves along the outer wall. The air smells of dirt, sweat, and the iron tang of tools. He drives the pick into the earth. The sound, thunk, crack, crumble, echoes in time with a dozen others. The ground shakes slightly underfoot. Sweat trickles into his eyes, and the dust clings to his face like war paint. But there's something rhythmic in it, the repetition, the simplicity. Swing, lift, drop. The world narrows down to motion and sound. Lucius, ever the talker, grunts beside him. I thought we were soldiers, not mules. Marcus smirks. Rome doesn't care what we thought we were. Rome needs walls more than heroes. Walls don't sing songs, Lucius replies, leaning on his shovel. Marcus gestures toward the distant horizon, where a faint line of stone stretches across the valley. The beginnings of a road. They don't need to. They last. Lucius squints. You think anyone remember who built them? Marcus shrugs. Maybe not us, but they'll walk on our work for centuries. He smiles faintly. That's memory enough. Further down the ditch, a centurion shouts at a group slacking near the tool wagon. His voice cuts like a whip. Put your backs into it. Rome isn't built on air. No one argues. The punishment for laziness isn't worth it. Somewhere near the wall, a blacksmith's hammer rings, clang, 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 steady and eternal, like the empire's heartbeat. Another squad passes by, dragging timbers for palisade. Their boots kick up clouds of red dust that shimmer in the light. Even the camp doctor is out, sleeves rolled, hauling buckets of water to keep the men cool. It's a strange kind of order, not the sharp chaos of battle, but a calmer one, built on sweat and silence. Marcus pauses to stretch his arms, watching as a group of engineers, the Fabri, set out string lines to measure the next section of wall. They move with precision, muttering about angles and foundations. The army isn't just an army. It's a machine that can build as well as destroy. One of the veterans, old Gaius, calls out as he passes with a cart of stones. We conquer in the morning and build in the afternoon. Keeps the muscles honest. Someone laughs. Another groans. But they keep digging. The fort itself seems to grow before their eyes. Stone by stone, plank by plank. Every block laid is another piece of Rome planted into foreign soil. When the sun reaches its peak, the centurion finally allows a short rest. The men drop their tools and collapse onto the dirt, gulping from their waterskins. Marcus sits with his back against a boulder, breathing slow and steady. His arms ache, his hands are raw, but his mind feels strangely quiet. Lucius flops beside him, eyes closed. You ever wonder if this matters? One wall and one fort in the middle of nowhere. Marcus looks down at the shovel beside him, its edge gleaming where the sun catches it. He answers softly, It all matters. Rome's not one city anymore. It's wherever we stand. He gestures toward the ditch, the wall, the endless stretch of half-built road beyond. Even here, far from her marble temples, we build her strength, stone by stone. Lucius cracks one eye open. You sound like one of those old philosophers. Marcus chuckles. If philosophy keeps the blisters away, I'll take it. Later, as the afternoon light softens, the work continues. Some men dig, others haul. A few patch gaps in the palisade with new logs, their axes biting deep into the wood. The engineers mark progress on wax tablets, measuring every line to perfection. The sounds blend together into a rough kind of music. Thud of spades, crack of timber, murmur of Latin orders, the low hum of empire in motion. Far off, the forest looms, green, dense, untamed. To the locals who live beyond it, this fort might seem like an invasion. To the soldiers within, it's a piece of home, a little Rome built on alien soil. Marcus glances toward the tree-line and wonders what the tribes think when they see these walls rising day by day. Do they see power or arrogance? He brushes the thought away. Philosophy doesn't mix well with shovels. As the shift ends, the centurion's horns sound again, this time not for alarm but dismissal. The men cheer weakly, too tired to show real enthusiasm. Tools are cleaned, blades sheathed, helmets unbuckled. The ditch is deeper now, the wall higher, the road longer. The Empire has inched forward another few feet. Marcus walks back toward the barracks, his shadow long in the evening light. He wipes the dirt from his face and glances once more at the half-built road stretching into the horizon. It leads somewhere, to another fort, another garrison, another heartbeat of Rome. He smiles faintly, thinking of what his father used to say. Roman strength isn't in his sword. It's in his hands. Hands that build, repair, shape, and endure. The legions did more than fight. They carved roads across mountains, raised walls against the wild, and laid the bones of empire across the earth. Their labor was discipline, their sweat devotion. Every stone they set was a promise that Rome would outlast them all. The wind stirs to the new-cut ditch. Dust rises, golden in the fading light. The soldiers' laughter echoes faintly, tired but proud. Another day's work done. Another mark of Rome left upon the world. The sun sinks low beyond the western ridge, painting the sky in shades of bronze and soft rose. The day's heat finally loosens its grip, and the fort exhales, tired, dusty, alive. From the barracks to the walls, the rhythm of the camp changes. Tools are set down, weapons wiped clean, armor hung carefully on pegs. Somewhere a horn sounds, not sharp this time, but mellow, almost comforting. It's the sound every soldier waits for. Evening meal. The cooks have been at it since late afternoon, big iron pots bubbling over smoky fires. The smell of lentil stew drifts through the air, rich and earthy, carrying hints of garlic, onion, and whatever scraps of pork or grain they manage to find that week. Marcus follows the line of men to the mess area, bowl in hand. Everyone moves slower now. No barked orders, no marching pace. Just quiet hunger. Lucius nudges him as they wait. If I close my eyes, I can almost pretend this smells like my mother's kitchen. Marcus grins. If your mother's kitchen smelled like sweat and burnt beans, then yes, almost. Lucius laughs, tired but genuine. You're cruel, Flavianus. Realist, Marcus replies. Cruel comes later, when I tell you what's probably floating in that stew. They sit near one of the fires, bowls steaming, bread crusts hard as stone. Around them, small groups of soldiers gather in half circles, the firelight flickering across armor and faces. Someone passes a jug of watered wine. Another man tunes a small lyre, its strings slightly out of tune, but still sweet enough to hum over the crackle of fire. The mood shifts from work to warmth, from order to fellowship. This is the Empire's other face. Not marble, not discipline, but shared weariness and laughter. The stew isn't good, but it's food, and that's enough. The first mouthful burns Marcus's tongue. He doesn't even care. He leans back, stretching his sore legs, watching the flames dance. Sparks rise into the dark sky like tiny, glowing birds escaping their cage. Around him, the talk begins, soft at first, then growing with the night. Old stories come out easily when bellies are full. Remember Spain? Says one man, a veteran named Vero, his voice raspy from age and smoke, hot as the god's own forge. You'd sweat through your tunic before dawn. Someone across the fire replies, Spain, huh? Try Parthia. You drink water faster than you can fill the flask, and still your throat feels like sand. Laughter ripples around the circle. Marcus listens, smiling. He's still young compared to most. His own stories fewer, his memories fresher. But he enjoys the rhythm of their voices, the way every soldier shapes his past into a legend. It's a kind of healing. The wounds sound less deep when wrapped in humor. After a while, the talk drifts, as it always does, toward home. Publius, the joke of the group, raises his cup. When I get back to Rome, I'm going to buy a vineyard. I'll drink wine every day until my liver begs for mercy. Varro chuckles. You'll be lucky if you can afford grapes. Lucius smiles dreamily. I don't need vineyards. Just a bed that isn't made of straw, and a meal that doesn't stare back at me. They all laugh again, but the laughter carries a softness, a wistful edge. Marcus pokes at the fire with a stick, watching the embers shift. He doesn't speak at first, but then quietly he says, "When I was a boy, I thought soldiers spent their nights in glory. Banquets, gold, singing the works." Lucius glances at him. "And now?" Marcus smiles faintly. "Now I know it's just lentil stew and sore backs. But maybe that's enough." Varro nods slowly, his old eyes glinting in the light. "That's the truth, lad. The glory's for statues. The living, we just try to make it to morning." Someone begins humming an old marching tune, low and steady. The melody spreads quietly from one soldier to another, not loud, not perfect, but full of memory. The lyrics are about homecomings, about mothers and fields and the Tiber at sunset. Most of them can't even remember all the words anymore, but they hum anyway. Marcus feels the tune vibrate in his chest. It's more than music. It's belonging. He closes his eyes and imagines the sound carrying across the fort walls, into the dark woods, maybe even reaching the stars. Later, as the night deepens, the stories grow slower, softer. The fire burns lower, painting everyone in warm orange and long shadow. One soldier, a quiet man named Severus, pulls from his pouch a small wooden carving of a woman. The edges are worn smooth by years of fingers. "My wife," he says simply. "She made me promise I'd bring her this back safe. Guess I'll have to keep that promise." Everyone falls silent for a moment. Even Lucius doesn't joke. Marcus looks at the carving, the simple face, the careful lines, and feels something stir in his chest. They're all here for different reasons, duty, pay, survival. But deep down it's the same dream, to go home. The wind picks up softly, tugging at cloaks and banners. Beyond the walls, the forest whispers again. Inside the fort, laughter returns, gentler this time, mixed with yawns and sighs. Marcus finishes the last of the stew, wipes his bowl with a crust of bread, and leans back on his elbows. The stars above glitter sharp and bright, clearer than they ever look in Rome's smoky sky. Lucius mutters beside him, half asleep, "You ever think about what the stars look like from home?" Marcus smiles faintly. "Maybe they look back at us, wondering when we'll return." For all its power, Rome was carried not by kings or marble, but by men who missed home. Around fires like these, they remembered who they were: sons, brothers, fathers. The empire might stretch endless, but their dreams remained small, fragile and beautifully human. The fire crackles one last time. The soldiers' laughter fades into murmured goodnights. Some drift toward the barracks. Others simply roll into their cloaks beside the embers. Marcus stays a moment longer, staring at the flames. He whispers, "For Rome and for home." Then he lets the night take him, the warmth of the fire fading into dreams. The fort sleeps. Fires burn low, sending thin ribbons of smoke into the black sky. The stars hang cold and steady, like silent witnesses above the frontier. Somewhere beyond the walls, a wolf howls, its call echoing to the trees before fading back into the hush of the forest. It's Marcus's turn for second watch, the hours after midnight, when even the torches seem tired. He pulls his cloak tighter and climbs the ladder to the wall, boots thudding softly on the worn planks. The night air is sharp and clean, carrying the scent of pine and smoke. Every breath comes out as a pale cloud, vanishing almost as soon as it forms. Up on the rampart, the world feels different. The fort below is wrapped in shadows, its outline softened by darkness. Here and there, a faint torch flickers, glowing like a lonely star in the mist. The other guards nod to him as he passes, silent figures half hidden under their cloaks. There's no need for words. At night, language seems unnecessary and too loud. Marcus stops near the eastern corner tower. From here, he can see the distant line of trees, tall, dark, and motionless. He grips his spear, leaning on it lightly, eyes scanning the horizon. The forest doesn't move. The world doesn't move. Only the wind does, whispering to grass, rattling the wooden walls, brushing past his face like a ghost with nowhere to go. Hours on night watch pass strangely. Time stretches thin, like an old rope ready to snap. He can hear everything now. Things he'd never noticed by day. The scrape of a mouse near the grain store. The soft creak of a shield hanging loose on a rack. The faint murmur of someone dreaming below in the barracks. Each sound feels louder than it should, each shadow deeper. Lucius once said that the night makes the imagination a better liar than any poet. Marcus didn't understand then. But up here, alone, he does. Every shape in the dark looks alive. Every rustle feels like something watching back. He moves slowly along the wall, the torchlight catching the curve of his helmet, the bronze dull under soot and time. The torch nearest him sputters, the flame bending low, threatening to die. He cups his hand around it, coaxing it back to life. The light flares for a moment, then steadies. The warmth feels good against his chilled fingers. He glances down at the shadows shifting beyond the ditch, probably wind and grass, but he watches anyway. It's strange how fear changes shape at night. In battle, fear is loud, screams, horns, chaos. But here it's quiet, gentle, a weight pressing down, invisible but heavy. He mutters softly to himself. Even the bravest soldier looks smaller after sunset. A light drizzle begins, soft, cold, unbothered. It darkens the wood and beads on his armor, tiny stars trembling on the metal. The torchlight reflects in them, as if a little piece of sky has landed on his chest. He thinks of home, again. He always does at night. He imagines his sister asleep by the window, the vineyard behind their house gleaming faintly in moonlight. He wonders if she ever looks at the same stars. Thinking of him. Would she even recognize me now, he whispers. His voice disappears into the wind. He touches a small charm tied under his armor, a bit of carved bone shaped like an olive branch. His mother gave it to him before he left for the Legion. Keep this close, she had said. It will remind the gods where you belong. The fort shifts in its sleep. A wooden beam creaks. A horse snorts softly in the stables. A soldier coughs in the dark. Marcus keeps walking, step after careful step. His sandals scrape softly against the damp planks. He stops again near the gate tower, staring out into the endless black, for a heartbeat. He thinks he sees movement, a flicker of light far among the trees. But it's gone almost instantly. Maybe a trick of his eyes. Maybe not. He stands still, listening hard. Only silence answers. He exhales slowly, the tension easing. False alarm, he murmurs. Again. The minutes crawl. The torch burns lower. His mind drifts in slow, heavy circles, to Rome, to the training fields, to the friends buried far from home. He remembers his first battle, the fear so sharp it felt alive, biting inside his chest. He remembers the centurion saying, "Fear never leaves you, Flavianus. You just learn to walk beside it." He smiles faintly in the dark. "Still walking, sir." A soft flutter draws his gaze, a small owl landing on the edge of the wall, not far from him. It stares at him with wide golden eyes, calm and curious. Marcus chuckles quietly. "You and me both, friend," keeping watch while the world sleeps. The owl blinks, then takes off again, disappearing into the night. He watches it go, feeling oddly comforted. There's a strange kind of brotherhood in silence, between man and bird, soldier and shadow. After a while, he hears footsteps approaching. Another guard, Gaius the veteran, making his round. Gaius nods. All quiet. Marcus nods back. Too quiet. The older man grins, teeth flashing briefly in the torchlight. That's how we like it. They share a brief silence, the kind born of long nights and shared boredom. Then Gaius moves on, his figure swallowed by the dark. Marcus looks up again at the sky. The stars have shifted slightly, a quiet reminder that time is still moving, even when it feels frozen. He wonders, not for first time, if Rome will remember him. All these years, all this discipline, all this distance. And for what? A name on a list? A memory buried under new walls? New wars? Maybe not. Maybe that's the point. He grips his spear a little tighter, steadying the thought. Rome doesn't need to remember me, he says softly. It just needs me to stand. The words feel right. Small, steady, real. The horn sounds faintly from the courtyard, soft and low, signaling the end of his watch. He takes one last look at the forest. Still dark, still silent, still there. He descends a ladder slowly, his armor whispering against the wood. Below, a few men stir awake, rubbing their eyes, ready to take their turn. Marcus nods to them, passing the torch. All quiet, he says. Then, without another word, he slips back toward his tent, the torchlight fading behind him. In the stillness of the second night, the Empire breathed through men like Marcus, silent sentinels holding the line between order and chaos. They feared the dark, yes, but they faced it anyway, for duty, for Rome, for fragile peace that slept behind the walls. The wind sighs through the fort once more. The torches flicker. And above it all, the stars keep their endless, indifferent watch. The horns sound again, that same deep, familiar note that slices through the mist like it always does. For a moment, Marcus doesn't move. He just lies there on his cot, staring at the wooden beams above him, listening to the creak of the barracks waking up. It's cold again, colder than it was yesterday, or maybe he's just feeling it more. Either way, the day has begun. He sits up, rubbing his eyes. The smell of damp wool, sweat, and oil drifts around the room. The others are already stirring, some yawning, some complaining softly, others already pulling on their boots. It's the same routine, the same rhythm, and somehow that sameness is what keeps them sane. Outside, the camp stirs like a living thing. The centurion's voice booms. The sound of boots stamping the dirt follows. Shields clatter in unison. Marcus steps out into the early light, his breath fogging the air. The horizon glows faintly. Not bright yet, but enough to paint the edges of the wooden palisade in pale gold. The mist is thick, just like yesterday, rolling over the fort's walls like a quiet sea. Somewhere in the distance, a crow calls. The cold bites through his armor, but it's the kind of cold he's gotten used to, like an old enemy who stopped trying to surprise him. He adjusts his belt, feels the weight of his gladius against his side. Everything is where it should be. The leather creaks, the metal glints. It's the same ritual every morning, the small motions that turn men into soldiers. Breakfast is simple again. Hard bread, a bit of salted pork, watered wine. No one complains. The jokes are recycled, the laughs half-hearted but real enough. Marcus sits with two of his friends, Publius and Gaius. Publius grins through a mouthful of bread. You think the day'll be different? Marcus smirks. Only if the gods get bored. Gaius shakes his head. Then we're safe. The gods have more exciting places to look at than this frozen edge of nowhere. They all chuckle softly. And yet, beneath the laughter, there is something steady, a quiet understanding that this life, this repetition, is what keeps Rome's heart beating. After the meal, the drills begin again. The centurions shout echoes across the yard, bouncing off wooden walls and armor plates. They form ranks, raise shields, thrust spears. Again and again. The sound of discipline fills the morning, rhythm, sweat, and breath moving as one. Marcus moves on instinct now. The testudo formation? Perfect. The weight of his shield? Familiar. The drills blur together until they almost feel like meditation. This is what being Roman means, not just fighting, but doing the same thing every day without faltering. At midday, the sun burns away what's left of the mist. The world looks softer now, golden and alive. Smiths hammer at broken armor. Cooks stir bubbling pots. The horses stamp and snort in the stable. Marcus helps with some repairs by the wall, tightening ropes and checking the ditch outside the fort. His hands are callous, his back aches, but his mind feels calm. There's something sacred in building, even if it's just fixing the same wall that will crack again next winter. He looks out toward the endless forest, tall, dark, and quiet. Somewhere beyond those trees, tribes are living their own lives, speaking their own languages, telling stories about men like him. Maybe they call them invaders. Maybe they just call them ghosts in iron. Marcus sighs. Even here, he murmurs, Rome breathes. Evening comes. The shadows stretch long and thin, and the sky turns a smoky purple. The soldiers gather again for the evening meal. Lentil stew tonight, with a touch of wine that tastes slightly less watery than usual. The fire crackles. Someone starts humming an old song, one from the southern hills of Italia. Others join in, off-key but warm. The melody floats up into the air, disappearing into the dusk. Marcus sits close to the fire, watching the flames dance. His hands are steady, but his eyes look far, past the walls, past the trees, to somewhere he can't quite name. He remembers his sister's last letter. Her words still echo softly. When you come home, bring a story worth telling. He smiles faintly. I'll try, he whispers to himself. Later that night, as the camp settles into silence, Marcus walks the edge of the wall. The stars are out bright, countless, the same stars that once shone over Rome. For a moment, he feels small but not alone. Every soldier who's ever stood guard, from Hispania to Syria, has seen these same stars. He leans against his spear, the wooden shaft cold in his hands. Rome endures, he says quietly, because we endure. The night wind brushes past him, soft and cool. Somewhere a wolf howls, distant but haunting. The torches flicker, shadows moving across the walls. And in the stillness, Marcus feels something like peace. Then, faintly, he hears it, the first call to horn again. Dawn is coming, just as it always does. He exhales slowly, smiles, and whispers, "Another day." And with that, Marcus Flavianus, a soldier far from home, turns back toward the camp, ready to begin the same story again. Because that's what Rome is made of, not marble, not gold, but men who wake with a horn, eat their hard bread, stand their watch, and keep the fire burning on the edge of the world. The night is calm again. The fire crackles softly. The wind hums through the camp, and the stars, countless and cold, shine over everything. Marcus sits near the embers, staring into the orange glow. Around him, men sleep. Some snore, some murmur in dreams. The smell of smoke and iron fills the air. It's another quiet night at the edge of Rome. But something feels different, not in the camp itself, but in the air, in the space between heartbeats. Maybe it's the kind of silence that comes after many days of repetition. The kind where the mind wanders far beyond the walls, beyond the fields, beyond the reach of torches and orders. Marcus pokes the fire gently with a stick, watching sparks float up like tiny spirits. He thinks about how small this camp is, just wood and stone, built on borrowed land. Yet somehow it stands for something enormous, something that began long before him, and will go on long after he's gone. He thinks of all the soldiers before him, the ones who marched across the Alps with Hannibal at their heels, the ones who built roads through endless wilderness, the ones who stood guard on lonely watchtowers just like this one, men who laughed, bled, cursed, and dreamed, and whose names no one remembers now. They say the empire is eternal, but maybe what's truly eternal are the people who carried it. The scene widens. The narration drifts away from Marcus now, like a bird rising higher, looking down on centuries at once. Across time, legions wake under different suns. The mist of Britannia, the dust of Syria, the burning sands of Africa. Shields gleam in every dawn, Voices rise in every tongue. They drill, they eat, they write letters home. They complain about the food, sharpen their blades, and joke about the officers. And every night, they look at the same stars Marcus is staring at now. Somewhere, a soldier in Egypt whispers a prayer to Jupiter before sleeping. Another in Gaul misses the laughter of his children. Another, deep in Germania, feels the ground tremble under his boots and wonders if he'll see another sunrise. Different lands, same hearts. The voice of Rome moves with them, not through speeches or statues, but through footsteps, through the sound of sandals striking the earth, heartbeat after heartbeat, century after century. The camera of the mind drifts higher still, over battlefields, roads, rivers, and ruins, over the Colosseum, over the marble temples, over dusty forts swallowed by time, all of it built by hands like Marcus's, hand that held shovels, swords, letters, and dreams. And in every place where Rome once stood, if you listen closely, you can still hear them, the rhythm of shields locking, the murmur of tired men sharing bread, the whisper of a century breathing as one. Because the legion never really ended. It just changed shape. Maybe today it lives on in those who still wake up early, put on their armor of duty, and do what must be done, not for glory, but because someone has to hold the line. Marcus, still by the fire, leans back and gazes at the night sky. The stars seem endless. He thinks of his sister, of his home, of the road that led him here. A faint smile tugs at his lips. He doesn't know if he'll ever return to Latium. But he knows one thing. He's part of something vast, something that stretches beyond maps and lifetimes. The fire crackles lower now. The camp settles into deep sleep. Somewhere, a trumpet sounds in the distance, soft, almost ghostly, echoing across the valley, and the voice of the narrator softens, wrapping the moment in warmth. They were more than soldiers. They were dreamers in armor, sleeping beneath foreign stars, carrying Rome not in their swords, but in their hearts. The wind picks up, sweeping through the camp. The flames dance once more, casting long shadows over the helmets and shields stacked neatly by the wall. Then silence, just the quiet breath of the earth, the faint rustle of fabric, and the faraway cry of an owl. The story fades, as all stories do, leaving behind not the sound of battle, but the hum of endurance. Because the true strength of Rome wasn't just in its armies or emperors, it was in the simple, stubborn courage of men like Marcus Flavianus. Men who woke each morning to the same horn, faced the same cold, and still believed, somehow, that they were building something that would last. And in that belief, they did. The fire dies down to embers. The stars burn bright above the frontier. And as the trumpet's echo fades into the night, one thought lingers, gentle and eternal. Rome endures because they endured.